Once upon a time, on the beautiful island of Jamaica, there lived a young boy named Lamar. Lamar's mother, a hard-working and loving woman, had raised him single-handedly on the small island. Lamar was a bright and curious boy, but he was also very stubborn, often resisting his mother's attempts to teach him manners and responsibilities. He grew up in the vibrant and colorful culture of Jamaica, surrounded by the rhythmic sounds of reggae music and the delicious smells of jerk chicken and curry goat. He was an active and adventurous boy, always eager to explore the island and its natural beauty. Lamar's young life was marked by a tragic loss. He never knew his father, who died in a boating accident when Lamar was just a baby. From a young age, his mother had taken on the role of both parents, working hard to provide for him and doing her best to give him a happy childhood despite the absence of her spouse. She was a talented dressmaker who ran a small business making clothes. However, her business primarily thrived during the back-to-school season when parents rushed to purchase new uniforms for their children before school resumed, and during the busy Christmas season when people looked to buy new curtains and sheets, among other things, for family gatherings and festivities. During other times of the year, her business was considerably slower, making it difficult to earn a steady income. She often worried about finances and the future, but her resilience and determination never wavered. She continued to work hard to give her son the best life she could, even when times were tough. On many occasions, Lamar would ask his mother for permission to go to a specific destination, such as to a friend's house or to play sports, only to secretly change his plan once he was out of her sight. He often wandered off to less desirable places, such as a nearby park where some older kids hung out, despite knowing that his mother would disapprove. Lamar's secret adventure were not limited to just changing his route. He would also stay out much longer than he had told his mother. He would tell her he would be back by a certain time, but then find himself caught up in whatever he had gotten himself into, losing track of time. This would lead to him being tardy for dinner or missing curfew, resulting in his mother's worry and disappointment. One afternoon, Lamar's friend, Marcus, came to his house looking for him. Marcus was a lively and energetic boy who loved to play football, and he had come by to ask Lamar to join a game that he and some other kids were organizing. Lamar's mother welcomed Marcus and told him that Lamar was not home yet. She explained that he had gone out without permission and she had no idea where he was. As Marcus was about to leave, Lamar returned home, looking carefree and unconcerned. He appeared cheerful and unaware of the worry he had caused his mother. His mother, on the other hand, was not amused by his late return and lack of communication. She was undoubtedly frustrated and angry with his behavior, and she gave him a stern warning. "You see, if you ever leave the yard again and take so long for come back in here, watch me and you," she said. Lamar explained that he was helping out an old woman at her house since she had no one else living with her. He apologized to his mother for not getting back home sooner. "You get where this time," she said, "but make sure you're telling the truth," she continued. "Me I tell her the truth, mommy," Lamar responded. "Me just lose track of time," he said. "You can go and go play football with Marcus them, but make sure you find your backside back in the yard as the game done. You hear me?" she said. "Yes, mommy," he answered. Lamar and Marcus went on their way to play football with their other friends. Lamar and his friends often skipped school early to wander to a nearby river. The river was a popular hangout spot for the young people in town, and they would spend their afternoons swimming and goofing around. He enjoyed the freedom of skipping class and escaping the confines of school. He would often bring along some snacks or drinks to share with his friends, and they would spend hours laughing and splashing in the cool water. When his mother discovered that he had skipped school to go to the river one day, she was furious. She waited for his return, pacing back and forth in a mix of anger and worry. When Lamar arrived home, his mother was ready for him, holding an intimidating strap in her hand. "Lamar!" she yelled as he walked through the door. "You think you could have skipped school and come in here and just relax? You better watch yourself, boy, 'cause me not play no games with you." Her words were sharp and commanding as she seized Lamar by the scruff of his shirt. With a firm grip, she forcefully pulled him inside, her temper still boiling, and gave him a proper whipping. Her voice held a calm fury as she finally stopped with the whipping and spoke. "Cool yourself off and go sleep," she said sternly, her chest heaving with pent-up frustration. "You can't keep doing this to me, Lamar. I'm fed up." After the whipping ordeal, Lamar took a shower to soothe the soreness of his back. He then sat down for dinner, and his mother served him a meal in silence. He picked at his food while sneaking glances at her, who sat across the table with an icy glare. Once he finished, he went to bed without a word, his back still stinging and his mind churning with thoughts. A few days after that incident, Lamar's mother was preparing dinner. In her haste, however, her hand accidentally knocked over the open container of salt, spilling it into the nearby bucket of water sitting at her side. She let out a frustrated huff. Clearly annoyed with the added inconvenience, she muttered to herself, "What is Pommy doing, man? What kind of cross is this?" With a resigned sigh, she called out to Lamar, who was casually watching TV. "Lamar!" she yelled out. "Come here to me. Go down to the shop, go buy me a pack of salt. See the money here." Lamar frowned and muttered a sarcastic protest. "Cho, why me have to go buy salt? You can't go yourself, no you cook." His mother, hearing his complaint, shot him an icy glare. "Lamar!" she snapped, her voice brimming with annoyance. "Me not ask you again. Go and go buy the salt, and if you ever take long to come back in here or lose my money, I'm going to bust your ass." Reluctantly, Lamar knew there was no arguing with his mother when she was in a mood like this. He sighed and begrudgingly walked away, grumbling under his breath as he headed out the door to the shop. As Lamar made his way to the shop to buy the salt, he spotted his friend Marcus. They often hung out together, and Lamar saw this as a welcome distraction for his errand. He rushed over to Marcus, forgetting all about the task his mother had given him. "Yo, wagwan, Marcus," he called out, a grin spreading across his face. They started chatting, and before long, Lamar had completely forgotten about the salt his mother had sent him to buy. Moments turned into minutes, and minutes into an hour as Marcus and Lamar talked and joked around, completely absorbed in the conversation. The errand his mother had given him seemed to have completely slipped his mind. Back at home, Lamar's mother was growing impatient. She stood by the door, staring out, waiting for him to return with the salt. The minutes ticked by, and her anger grew. She looked at the clock, her patience wearing thin. After waiting impatiently for what seemed like an eternity, Lamar's mother had had enough. She decided to take matters into her own hands and went searching for him. Frustrations and worry mixed together as she set out to find her wayward son and the missing salt. After a brief search, Lamar's mother located him in a nearby game shop, engaged in a game console. She spotted him through the shop window, absorbed in the game, completely oblivious to the time and his forgotten errand. Her annoyance flared as she pushed open the door and stepped inside. It quickly became clear that he had spent the money she gave him for the salt on the game instead. Her face contorted with anger, and she marched over to him, her footsteps heavy and purposeful. "Pickney!" she exclaimed, her voice sharp with anger. "Me send if you go buy salt and you take my money by game? It's only God can tell me no bust your ass." Lamar's heart sank as his mother confronted him. He knew he had messed up big time, and he meekly mumbled a weak response. Me sorry, mommy, me just forget." His mother's anger flared even further. "Forget? How can you forget something like that? Me say if you go do one simple thing and you go spend my money on game. Lamar's mother was seething with anger, her eyes blazing. She grabbed him by his hand and led him towards their home after purchasing a new pack of salt. All the way, she muttered under her breath, her anger tangible. As they arrived in the yard, she turned and spoke firmly. Go on inside the house. I'm going to show you who run things in here. She stomped off to the house, still fuming, leaving Lamar to follow reluctantly, bracing himself for the punishment he knew he deserved. Once inside, his mother slammed the door shut and rounded on him, her eyes narrowed and her expression hard. You think you can just do as you please inside here? She demanded, her voice filled with disappointment. She reached for a switch, a thin, flexible rod-like object used for spanking. The sight of it made Lamar's heart sink even further. He knew he was facing a severe consequence for his carelessness. Come here, she demanded, gesturing for him to step forward. Her hand held the spanking tool firmly, ready to deliver the punishment she had promised. There was no sign of mercy in her eyes. Lamar slowly moved forward, his head hung low. He stood in front of his mother, waiting in trepidation for the first blow to come. Without warning, she brought the switch down across his bottom, the stinging sting making him gasp loud. "Why, mommy, why?" he cried. "Me sorry me spend your money. It da happen again." The first blow was hard, a tangible punishment for his disobedience. After the punishment, pain and shame coursed through Lamar's body. He rushed his stinging backside, feeling the lingering impact of the switch on his skin. He quickly made his way to his room while rubbing his behind, seeking the solitude and privacy of his space to nurse his hurt. Following the spanking, Lamar learned his lesson the hard way. The sting on his backside served as a constant reminder of the consequences of disobedience. Over the next few days, he made a concerted effort to do everything right. One public holiday, Lamar's friend Marcus visited his house, seeking his participation in a football game. They needed him to join them since they were short-handed. Seeing this as a chance to participate in a friendly match, Lamar gladly agreed. Before leaving for the football game, his mother gave him a stern warning. "After this game," she firmly said, "you better come straight home. You hear me?" Lamar nodded, promising to abide by his mother's instruction. "Yeah, mommy, me go come straight home after," he reassured her, not wanting to risk another scolding or punishment. At the end of the football game, Lamar's friends approached him with an invitation. They told him they wanted to go to the beach and asked if he would join them. He initially wanted to go, excited by the idea of a fun day at the beach, but then he remembered his mother's warning to come straight home. Lamar's friends quickly noticed his hesitation. They knew they could tempt him, so they began ribbing him, calling him a mama's boy and teasing him for being afraid to disobey his mother. "Ah, look pa Lamar, afraid for come with we," one of his friends taunted. "You're a coward, man. You afraid a little beating from your mother?" another one said. The friendly banter and taunts from his friends were starting to get to Lamar. It was hard to resist the peer pressure and the allure of a fun day at the beach. He responded, "Yo, people always join us sleep on holiday time, you know," he said, attempting to rationalize his decision. Feeling the weight of peer pressure and the desire to have a good time, Lamar eventually caved. His friends' relentless taunting and the promise of a fun day at the beach were too enticing for him to resist. Feeling guilty about going against his mother's warning, Lamar tried to make a compromise with his friends. "Look, me can only stay for 1 hour," he said firmly. "Me need to go back home after that." His friends reluctantly agreed, not wanting him to miss out entirely. They promised they would stay for an hour, leaving plenty of time for him to get home before his mother noticed. Once they reached the beach, Lamar and his friends quickly stripped down to their boxers, leaving their clothes on the sand. They were eager to get into the cool, refreshing water and have a good time. Lamar felt a rush of excitement as he waded into the ocean, splashes of water soaking his boxers. He and his friends splashed and joked around in the surf, enjoying the freedom of the water and their temporary escape from responsibility. As the time to leave approached, Lamar's heart sank as he realized he could not find his clothes on the beach. The waves had washed them away, leaving him without any trousers to wear. He looked around in disbelief, scanning the sand for any sign of his discarded clothes, but there was nothing but a smooth expanse of sand where he had left them. Lamar's frustration and panic rose as he realized what had happened. "Jesus Christ, I eat this!" he exclaimed. "Me mother go kill me!" The thought of facing his mother without his clothes sent a wave of dread through him. Panicked and desperate, Lamar turned to his friends, his voice rising in distress. "What me I go do now?" he cried out, his voice tinged with anguish and uncertainty. His friends looked at each other, equally concerned about his predicament. They knew how strict and no-nonsense Lamar's mother could be, and the thought of him facing her wrath without pants on was not a pleasant one. One of them spoke up, trying to offer a solution. "We could try and find some clothes in the shop," he suggested. "Maybe we can buy a new pair of pants or something." Lamar considered the idea, but he knew deep down that his mother would still be furious regardless of whether he showed up in a new pants or not. "That not go work," he said, his voice laced with despair. "Mother go kill me, pants or no pants." The group stood there in a moment of silence, each of them grappling with the situation they found themselves in. As they made their way back to their community, Lamar could feel the eyes of the other people on him, their gazes fixed on his bare legs and his only attire, his boxers. Some people snickered and laughed quietly to themselves, amused by the spectacle of Lamar walking around in his underwear. As they passed by a woman, she couldn't help but tease Lamar, her voice laced with amusement. "Hey boy," she shouted while laughing. "Where your clothes there?" The woman's word drew the attention of other people in the neighborhood, and they quickly joined in the laughter. Some chimed in, adding to the mockery. "Your mama go kill you with lick," one man called out. The laughter echoed through the air as Lamar stood there, red-faced and embarrassed, wearing only his boxer shorts. Lamar's friends, feeling bad for him and wanting to help, quickly hatched a plan to distract his mother. They figured that if they could keep her occupied, he could sneak back into the house unnoticed and avoid facing her wrath. His friends spoke in hushed tone, making their plan clear. "All right," one of them said. "When we reach your yard, we're gonna start make whole heap of noise. We're gonna talk loud, make joke, and be as noisy as possible. That way there, your mother will come outside and tell you to shut up and go our yard. When she come out, you just sneak in at the back and go put on your clothes." The other friends nodded, agreeing to the plan. "Yeah man, that can work," another one chimed in. "We can keep her occupied. Don't worry about nothing, man. You just hurry up inside, get your clothes, and dash out back." Lamar nodded, appreciative of their effort, but still nervous about facing his mother. "All right," he said, his voice quivering slightly. "Let's do this." When they reached Lamar's yard, the plan was put into action. His friends started making loud noise and commotion, laughing and joking amongst themselves. They kept up the banter and chatter, trying to draw the attention of his mother away from the house. After hearing the commotion, his mother went outside to chase them away from her gate. His friends, however, apologized and asked her for some water. As soon as she went back inside to get the water, Lamar seized the opportunity to dash into the house through the back door. His friends continued making noise in the front yard to keep his mother distracted, giving him a small window of time to sneak in without being noticed. He moved as quietly as possible, making sure to avoid making any loud noises that could alert her to his presence. His heart pounding in his chest, the adrenaline pumping through his veins as he crept through the house, dodging any areas where his mother might be to avoid being spotted. His mother noticed his absence, asked about Lamar's whereabouts. His friends, sticking to the plan, lied, claiming that Lamar was on his way with Marcus and would be there shortly. Once he heard his mother step back inside, Lamar saw his chance to make a quick escape. He quietly slipped back out of the house, the fear of being caught still coursing through his veins. He breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that his friends and his own quick thinking had allowed him to avoid his mother's wrath, at least for now. He quickly rejoined his friends in the front yard, trying to act casual and calm, pretending that he hadn't just been ducking and dodging his mother's gaze. His friends noticed his return and gave him a discreet nod, silently acknowledging his successful escape. They continued their ruse, laughing and chatting loudly, maintaining the facade they had created to keep his mother none the wiser. As they continued talking and joking, Lamar couldn't help but feel a sense of both relief and anxiety. He knew that he had dodged a bullet for now, but he also knew that he would need to be more careful in the future to avoid any more close calls with his mother's wrath. As Christmas approached, Lamar's mother became increasingly preoccupied with work, leaving her less time to keep an eye on him. The heightened workload allowed Lamar a slight reprieve from the watchful eye, but he knew he shouldn't push his luck too far. He relished the rare moments of freedom that he now had without his mother's constant supervision, but he also knew he needed to tread carefully, especially after the incident with the lost trousers at the beach. With Christmas approaching, Lamar received permission from his mother to go and play football with his friends. Feeling a surge of excitement at the chance to enjoy some time outdoors without her constantly looking over his shoulder, he quickly agreed and prepared to join his friends on the field. As he laced up his shoes and adjusted his gears, anticipation coursed through him. This was the freedom he craved, running, sprinting, and playing without the constant fear of being caught or reprimanded. After a thrilling game of football, Lamar and his friends gathered around, still buzzing with the adrenaline of the match, as they chatted and caught their breaths. One of his friends suggested something that piqued Lamar's interest. "Hey, instead of going right home," his friend said, "we could go to the river no? Just for a bit. It's a nice day. We can bet say it's cool and peaceful over there." Lamar's eyes lit up at the idea. The prospect of hanging out by the river, enjoying the fresh air, and the company of his friends sounded far better than going back home and dealing with his mother's constant nagging. His friends, sensing his enthusiasm, chimed in, agreeing that it was a great idea, so it was decided they would head over to the nearby river and spend some time relaxing by the waterfront before heading home. Lamar and his friends gathered their belongings and set off for the river, their steps quickened by their excitement. As they walked, they talked about the game they had just played, sharing stories and laughing about their closest calls and best plays. They soon reached the river, and a sense of tranquility washed over them as they approached the water's edge. The sound of the flowing river and the cool breeze carried on it created a soothing backdrop to their impromptu hangout spot. They found a comfortable spot on the riverbank and settled down on the grass. Enjoying the peaceful atmosphere, some of them took off their shoes and dipped their toes in the water, while others sat back and simply enjoyed the tranquility of the moment. The day before their hangout session, it had rained heavily, leaving the ground and the riverbank a bit soggy. However, despite the slightly damp surroundings, Lamar and his friends were determined to make the best of their time by the river, not allowing a little rain to dampen their spirits. As they were lounging by the river, enjoying the peace and quiet, the sound of rushing water suddenly filled the air. To their surprise and alarm, the river had started to rise, forcing the boys to quickly scramble to their feet and run away in different directions, seeking higher ground to evade the encroaching water. The sudden turn of events had the boys running for their lives, adrenaline pumping through their veins. They knew they needed to find a high, dry spot to escape the rising river and avoid being swept away by the current. Some of them headed for the nearby trees, climbing up the trunk and grabbing onto branches, getting as high as they could. Others darted towards buildings or rocky outcroppings, any place that could offer some safety and respite from the encroaching water. Caught up in the chaos and urgency of the situation, Lamar found himself running into the nearby woods, trying to escape the rising water. However, in his panic and haste, he quickly realized that he had become disoriented and lost his bearing amongst the trees. Fear gripping him as he realized he had no idea which direction to go, unsure of how to get back to the river or his friends. The forest seemed to close in on him as he called out for help, his voice a mere whisper amidst the vast expanse of the greenery surrounding him. Darkness began to fall as the sun sunk lower in the sky. The once familiar woods around Lamar morphed into an unfamiliar and ominous landscape as the light faded, leaving him alone and lost amid the creeping shadows. Lamar's friends, having escaped the rising river and reached safety, soon realized that Lamar was nowhere to be found. Despite their best effort to locate him, the darkness and the disoriented nature of the woods made their search difficult. Panic and worry set in among the group as they desperately called out his name, but only the sound of the forest responded, an unsettling mix of rustling leaves and the eerie nighttime calls of nocturnal creatures. His friends, realizing the gravity of the situation, decided to leave the search and head back to their community. They knew they had to inform others about Lamar's disappearance and marshal a larger effort to locate him before it was too late. With a sense of urgency, they swiftly made their way back to the community, their steps carrying them away from the darkness of the woods and towards the safety of familiar surroundings. Upon reaching their destination, they hurried to find the adults and inform them of Lamar's disappearance. They explained the situation, describing how he had rushed into the forest to escape the rising rivers and had not been seen since. Lamar's mother, who had been going about her tasks, suddenly found herself informed of her son's disappearance. Concern and worry flooded her as she listened to the news and realized that her son was lost in the woods. "Lord God, what me I go do now? What kind of problem this for me?" she cried. Her heart raced as she considered the possibility of him being lost in the dangerous nighttime woods, the unknown circumstances surrounding his disappearance weighing heavily on her mind. "God Almighty, what me I go do now?" she repeated, the helplessness in her voice evident. The thought of her child out there in the darkness, possibly hurt or scared, filled her with dread. She knew she couldn't just sit idly by, but the prospect of entering those dense woods alone seemed daunting. A group of searchers, comprising adults and several of Lamar's friends, ventured out into the woods, armed with flashlights and determination. They scoured the area, calling out Lamar's name and searching for any signs of him. However, as the night wore on, their efforts proved futile. The darkness and the vastness of the woods thwarted their attempts to locate him. Despite their best efforts and the combined strength of their numbers, they were unable to find any trace of Lamar. The night had cloaked him in its dark mantle, and he remained hidden from their sight. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the community was already in a state of anxiety. They had searched throughout the night with no sign of Lamar, and the morning brought with it renewed fear and worry. People gathered in small clusters, exchanging concerned glances and discussing the unfolding situation. The air was filled with a sense of unease, the adults talking in hushed tones, their worry for the young boy's safety evident on their faces. The community members, unwilling to give up hope despite the previous night's fruitless efforts, gathered once again to continue the search for Lamar. Armed with renewed determination and equipped with additional manpower and fresh search strategies, they set off, fanning out to cover more grounds in their quest to locate the missing boy. The search took on a different tone in the light of day, with better visibility and fresh energy. The community members scoured the woods, inspecting every inch and terrain and calling out Lamar's name in hopes of a response. 2 days after Lamar had gone missing, a farmer tending to his fields when he spotted something in the distance. Upon closer inspection, he saw a small, huddled shape in a little cave. The farmer, filled with curiosity and concern, approached the cave and found Lamar, sick and weakened, curled up inside. He quickly rushed back to the community and informed them of his discovery. Word spread through the community. Lamar had been found. The news was met with a mix of relief and worry as people rushed to the farmer's field to see for themselves. There, in a secluded little cave, was Lamar, weakened and ill from his ordeal in the woods, but very much alive. The community members, seeing Lamar safely nestled inside the cave, were filled with relief and joy. The search had finally come to an end, and their prayers had been answered. However, the sight of the young boy, weary and sickly, filled them with a new kind of worry. They quickly carried Lamar out of the cave and took him to the community health center, where they gathered supplies to tend to his condition. It was clear that he had gone through a harrowing experience, and they needed to provide him with care and support to help him recover. Words of Lamar's rescue quickly reached his mother, and she immediately made her way to the community health center, her steps fast and filled with worry. As she entered, she saw her son, weak and pale, lying in a makeshift bed, surrounded by people tending to his needs. Tears welled up in her eyes as she approached him. Her relief at his safe return mingled with concern for his current state. "My baby boy," she whispered, falling to her knees beside him. She gently took his hand in hers, her touch as soft as the flutter of a butterfly's wing. Her eyes never left his face, drinking in the sight of him, safe and found after days of torment and worry. "No do this to me again. I always want you to listen to me, but you're so odious. Why you so odious, pickney?" Her voice was a mix of love, relief, and a hint of sternness as she spoke to her son. "Never do this to me again. Promise me you'll never do this to me again. Don't ever put me through this." Lamar, weakened yet aware, heard his mother's words. He gave a small nod, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm sorry, Mommy," he mumbled, his voice hoarse. "Me nah go do it again." His mother's eyes softened at his apology, and she squeezed his hand gently, offering a small smile. "Me know you're sorry, me pickney. This is a lesson for you. You have to learn to listen to me. You understand?" Lamar nodded again, his eyes filling with a hint of determination. "Yes, Mommy," he replied, his voice still weak. "May I go start listen to you more?" His mother let out a soft chuckle. She kissed his hand and then ran a hand gently over his hair, offering a bit of comfort. "You have to work on that, my son. We have to look out for each other," she said. "Me know, Mommy," Lamar murmured, closing his eyes for a moment as he drew comfort from her touch. "I promise I'll work on it." Marcus, along with Lamar's other friends who had been present during the incident, were deeply affected by the events that had unfolded. They were filled with guilt and remorse for not being able to prevent Lamar from running into the woods and for their part in the situation. They failed to heed their friends' warnings, and their actions had contributed to his subsequent disappearance. The fear and anxiety they had experienced during the search had left a lasting impression on them, and they promised themselves never to take their friend's safety and well-being lightly again. In the days that followed, Lamar slowly recovered from his ordeal in the woods. With the care and attention of the community and his mother's watchful eye, he gained strength and soon returned to his usual self. However, the lesson he had learned from his experience in the woods stayed with him. From that point on, he made a conscious effort to listen to his mother and respect her warning and instructions. He had seen firsthand the pain and worry his disobedience had caused, and he vowed never to subject his mother to that much distress again. Indeed, Lamar's experience in the wood served as a powerful life lesson for him. It taught him the consequences of disobedience and the importance of listening to those who care about him. His brush with danger and the worry he caused his loved ones made him realize that sometimes the simplest things, like listening to his mother, could prevent potential harm and misunderstandings. This lesson, though hard learned, stayed with him as he grew older, shaping his understanding of responsibility, respect for authority, and the value of the bonds between family members. Hello everyone, thank you again for coming back to our channel. I hope you all enjoyed this wonderful Jamaican story. Remember, sometimes it's best to listen to the ones we love. As we say in Jamaica, prevention is better than cure. I'll see you in the next one. Be blessed.